Welcome to today's webinar, Grant Writing Strategies and Tips, brought to you by Simple K-12. My name is Lori, and I am here with Sharon Bailey, and we are so excited to have all of you here with us today. Now, a little bit about our presenter. Sharon Bailey is a National Board Certified Teacher with 30 years of teaching experience. She holds a bachelor's degree from Ohio University in Home Economics Education and Consumer Services and a master's degree from Drexel University in Human Behavior and Development. Now, she's also an experienced grant writer, having received over $88,000 for her department over the past 4 years. Sharon, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Hi, I'm glad to be here too.
I will go ahead and pass the screen to you.
Are we good?
Looks great, Sharon.
Welcome. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm kind of excited about doing this webinar. Grant writing has really changed my life and our department here in Burgettstown. I am in Southwest PA. We are out of school. We did go really late this year compared to usual, and I know some of my friends in the eastern seaboard are still in school since we had so much snow. So I'm really glad to have you with me. If you're over lunch, that's really exciting too. A little bit about how I got involved in grant writing. When I was getting my graduate work, I did not want to stay in teaching, and I was looking at human service management, and a grant writing course was required. So I had some background at that point. And then I did get one of those jobs in human service management. I was a manager for a community action, and that was a job where I did nutrition programs with food banks and cheese and butter distributions through USDA. And it required me to raise $3 million a year to carry on that program. So I became really good at grant writing. I then started back into teaching when my children were younger, and I decided I needed to do something to improve my department. So I've presented nationally and locally on grant writing, and I have even presented to the administrators in our district, which was probably the most hard presentation I've ever done. And I'm really excited because I've assisted a whole lot of FCS teachers in obtaining Pathways grants, and I will talk about that a little bit later. Now, this was my motivation. When I walked into this department 7 years ago, the picture on the left was what I saw. And that was also the same thing I saw when I walked into that same department 30 years before. The real exciting part about that was the waffle irons had the 30 years before date on them from being bought. They no longer had wrappings on the cords. There was none of the new things that should be in a kitchen, and I was kind of disappointed, truthfully. So I was told I couldn't write any grants or couldn't do anything about it because we were going through a renovation. And the picture on the right is what the renovation looks like, except they didn't put anything in those closets. I have really nice closets. I even have a drop-down ironing board that they didn't bother to wire, so there's no plugs on that wall. I had those really fancy computers there. If you notice, there's a lot of cords. That's because all the batteries were dead and they had to be plugged in to work. Half the keys were missing, and they thought this was wonderful. I quite didn't agree. So I decided I would grant write. And I started small, and that's my suggestion. So in 2009, the Department of Ed in my state was offering real baby simulators. And those are computerized babies that cry and wet, and you have to feed them. And they were about $750 a piece. And I wrote for one of those. You had to write what you would do. And that was my first educational win on a grant. So I received a real baby. And that same year, AeroGrow, which is hydroponic growing units, they had a similar kind of thing. Tell what you would do with a hydroponic unit in your classroom. And so it's small, fits on your kitchen counter, and we grew lettuce. At the same time, the local grocery store was putting in a hydroponic growing unit in the grocery store. So my kids kind of knew what it was and were really excited. So my first two things I got were actually physical items and small, and there was not a whole lot of paperwork to do, and that was easy for me. Well, at that point, my department or my superintendent knew that I could write grants and asked me to write for a team nutrition grant Team Nutrition is part of USDA, and they sponsor all kinds of grant writing programs. And so I did write for that. I had a 2-week lead to get that grant, and I did get one. It was $6,000. It was for promoting nutrition and physical activity, and it had to be a cooperative effort between the cafeteria and either the phys ed department or the family consumer science department. And we went to training at Penn State, and when we got there, they told us not enough people applied for this grant, and they had money left over. If we could think of other activities and submit a form before we left, we could have more money. And so we did. And I have learned that a lot of grants do not get enough applicants for them rather than too many applicants for them. And so that was my first year. The first 2 grants did not require anything once I received the project or the materials, but the Pennsylvania and the USDA grant did. And so that's the things you have to look at. The next year, I was working with the elementary on the grant in 2009 and 10, and I didn't write as much, but I got a Fuel Up to Play 60 grant. And those are available through the Dairy Council and the National Football League. They vary in amount, but they're for doing any kind of nutrition activities or physical fitness activities, and they're available school-wide. And so you would like to contact your local dairy council for that. But I received $5,000, so now I had some money that I could get some up-to-date things. I also went to a training for FDA, and we included science in our projects. In 2013, I found out about a Pathway to Financial Success grant, and actually I found that out in my Discover Card bill. And there was a little half sheet of paper, and I thought they're probably kidding. And I talked to my tech person, and I said, I really want tech in my department. The computers with the cords that had to be plugged in and the keys that didn't work just weren't making it. And so I applied, and we talked about it, and he said, make a wish list and get everything you want. And they funded everything I wanted, and we were kind of surprised. So that was big time. We got interactive whiteboards that year, and we got a laptop cart in our department for 2 people. And I never thought I was going to get that. And a grant that's open to all teachers in the United States is the National Education Foundation grant. And so I had applied for that. And those are $5,000. And I'm going to go through all these and give you links, but this is just a little introduction to what I've done. We put in a greenhouse in a courtyard outside our room, and we looked at green living type projects. So recycling projects, planting seeds projects. But all grants don't have to be big. And I received a Washington Communities, this is Washington County, and there's a foundation, and $100 towards some more seeds. And I received more things from Fuel Up to Play, and local McDonald's have like conglomerate groups that they belong to, and they award grants to middle school teachers. And I received that. So that year was a little overwhelming at first. And then this past year, we received one of the national assemblies from FCCLA, and that was kind of nice. It was on safe driving. The whole school got to go. All the kids got sunglasses. They had clickers for all the kids to answer questions about safe driving and drunk driving and texting and driving. And I received a second Pathways grant, and so we got an iPad lab this year. Then the PA Farm Bureau has an Agmobile, which is a huge trailer truck science lab, and I won that, and they brought that for all the middle school kids to get to go to. And I received a teacher award for the state and $500 in science and gardening supplies from them. The next one I received is a Milk Marketing Board grant, and what I got from them was a vending machine, and I never had a clue how much vending machines cost, but they are almost $5,000, so that's one of the things I'll show you a picture of. And another Fuel Up to Play grant, and it helped me with my vending project. So now, some ideas. I have grants across a lot of activities. I'll talk to you about what I did to get them. First thing you need to know is, in our school, it's standard-based curriculum, and you have to write your proposal based on what you need in your classroom, and often your principals aren't going to let you come up with some totally off-the-wall new thing. They want to see you first build your program. So you need to think about what you teach and how do you want to deliver that lesson. And so I was kind of tired of having a textbook and worksheets. That wasn't really the kind of teacher I am. I am a project-based teacher, and I needed money to be able to do that. And so that's where I started looking. I showed you what my classroom looked like. So I sat and I went through catalogs and I made a wish list. And whether it's a wish list for technology or for robotics or for Legos or for computers, make a big one, because you won't always find a grant to fit the first thing on your list. So you want to have a lot of ideas of what you want. But they don't usually give grants for a thing. They give grants for an idea or for a project. They want to see how you want to implement it. The Real Baby Simulator was unusual in that you got a thing, but you had to tell how would that fit your curriculum and what would you do with it. They weren't just giving you an object. So you might want a computer lab, or you might want an iPad lab, or you might want Chromebooks, but you have to be able to tell what you want to do with them. So make a wish list. Then find out what your school procedures are. When I first wrote grants, we did not have a form in our school to fill out. We could just do them. They quickly learned that they wanted to know more of what was going on in our classrooms and developed a form. Ask your administrator, because I have friends who have applied for a grant, did not have a form, and did not tell an administrator, and they would not let them accept the grant. So you need to find out what procedures are in your school, and then find out who has to approve your grant application at your school before you submit it. And then you want to find out if there's a person who can help you write the grant. If you're not familiar with writing grants, at least somebody who can get you started, because a lot of grants are going to ask for demographic information, and they're going to ask what your community's like, what your percentage of free and reduced lunch are. Depending on what you write for, they might ask other information, such as how many computers are already in your school. So find out if there's someone who can help you, or if your principal or your superintendent or whoever's the administrator is willing to help you. Okay, prepare to write. You need to come up with a calendar and watch the dates. Make sure you have enough time to gather all the information. Sure, sometimes you're going to find a grant 3 days before it needs to be submitted, and you have to know if it's realistic to even try to submit that grant. Read the fine print. Know what you have to submit and how you have to submit it. Do they accept it as an online proposal, or does it have to be a hard copy proposal? And do you have to have signatures of people in your district? Do you have to have an advisory board? Do you have to have someone in the community working with you? So you need to look and read all of that. And some of the proposals have a lot of reading you have to do ahead, but set up a timeline. But don't let the need for demographic information from your district deter you. There is a way to find that, and usually your cafeteria manager or whoever's in your food service has a lot of the data you have to submit, because food service is run through USDA around here, and they collect that same kind of data. Okay, next you need to ask yourself, what are the requirements of my grant? Is there a financial responsibility from the district, such as do they have to have matching funds? Do they have to pay for substitutes, or does the grant? Do you have to go to a special kind of training? What are you required to do in exchange for your grant? Do you have to collect data? For the Pathways grant that I have right now, I had to do pre and post testing on financial knowledge of my students. For others, for the media to promote the sponsor, when I have a Fuel Up to Play 60 grant, they came out and videotaped in our school, and I had to have all those permission slips signed ahead. So you need to know what they expect from you and what you have to do. And are you able to do that? So if you do not have the facilities to collect, or you don't have the time, maybe that's not the grant you want to apply for. And that's why I said start small. Little grants for a couple $100, get your feet wet, and let you know how they collect this grant or this information. You need to know how long the length of the grant is, and for how long you will need to maintain your responsibilities for that grant. So my Pathways grants are a year, and I must submit data at the semester marks, and so it's twice a year I submit that. for my Fuel Up to Play grants, I have to submit budgets once I've spent all the money and then show them what we have done. Each grant is different. When I have the PDE grant for the babies, I didn't have to submit anything after I bought or they presented me with the babies. But that's important to know. Okay, where do you look? First, start local. Some schools have a fund that they have grants from and you have to write. Some districts have that and some communities have that, such as we have in our county a community foundation that runs a lot of educational grants and community grants and scholarships. And I have since learned that McDonald's as a corporation has owner-type grants. So whatever your area is, I am Southwestern PA, and the McDonald's owners in Southwest PA have $500 grants they give. So look local. It will be the easiest and require the least amount of effort from you. And it's the best place to start because the pool of applicants will be small. Next, philanthropy grants, things that people donate or give. Donors Choose is a good example of this. There are others on my list, but you need social media for promotion, I learned. I am not the best at convincing people through social media to give me things. I can talk to you and convince you, but social media isn't my forte. But if this is really something you enjoy, this is a good way that you don't have to approach people face-to-face to give you grants. But there are things like digital wish lists that also work the same way. Foundations are the next group. There are a lot of foundations. The grant that I've gotten through a foundation is the National Education Association Foundation. And they have two grants, or two types of grants. They have grants for teacher training, and they have classroom resources or success grants. If you're a single teacher applying, it's $2,000 grants, and if it's a team of 2 or more, then they give you $5,000 grants. You do not have to be a member of the NEA or the AFT. You just have to be a public school teacher in the state or in the country. And corporate grants. Corporations have all kinds of things that they give in kind as well as grants. Walmart and Sam's Club have big posters on the front walls, at least in our local ones, about how much they have given. So you talk to the managers because those are usually done locally even though they're submitted nationally. Lowe's and Home Depot, you also need to talk to the manager. Often they start with giving you a coupon, and then they have times that you can submit grants for specific things. You often get those in terms of a gift certificate. Target has all kinds of pamphlets in the front of our local Target store about field trip grants and different types of grants they have. But there are many corporations that have grants, and so you just have to do some digging to find those. Discover Card was my find in my Discover bill, and they are still running this Pathway to Financial Success grant, and it will be running for the next 3 years. And this is to teach financial education to high school students, and it's limited to 9th through 12th grade, but they do not care what area in your state teaches financial education. In the state of Pennsylvania, financial education does not belong to any one discipline. So there are math teachers who have applied, there are family consumer science teachers, there are business teachers, social studies teachers, and economics teachers who have all applied for financial Pathways to Financial Success grant, and it does not have an S on it. That goes to a different site, just so you know when you start looking for that grant. Okay. And the last area to talk about is government grants. USDA, my area is foods and nutrition, so USDA is one of the places I look. But there are all kinds of government grants for specific types of activities they want to do or projects that the government sees a need for. And Team Nutrition is foods and nutrition, but those are open to whole schools to compete. And if you complete all the activities in a Healthy School Challenge, which includes the cafeteria and the foods department in your Family Consumer Science department, and it includes the PE people, and it includes all the teachers being active, then there's grants that are whole school-wide grants given. Where do you search? In my resources, I have a long list, but some of the places that I have found most success are Kids Gardening, and they list a whole lot of corporations that are giving either in-kind services or giving money towards starting outdoor gardens and outdoor classrooms. So it's kind of broad what you can apply for. Digital Wish List is another place to look. When I last looked, there were 50 grants listed, and a lot of them were for classroom licenses for digital media. Grant Wrangler is the next one on my list, and they list a lot. All kinds of things from music to teen driving, and when I looked, there were 182 grants listed on Grant Wrangler. FundServe, you need to check this one probably weekly, and it has a lot of foundations, and they list them in categories such as literacy, and that's how they list their grants. That does change a lot. And Grant Alert is one of the ones that is a government-related grant listing site, and they change pretty often too, and they fit all the categories of education. And the last place that I would suggest as an overall big search is whatever professional organizations you belong to. I belong to the American Association of Family and Consumer Sciences, and any grants related to the areas we teach are often listed there. But I also live on a 35-acre farm, so I belong to the Farm Bureau, and they have grants that are available to schools too. And I hadn't thought of looking there, but professional organizations, not just teaching professional organizations, have grants for schools. Continued funding. Once you have grants, sometimes you have other ideas or you want to see an ongoing project. And these are two things that I have gotten grants for that will fund my student organizations and activities. On the left, the dairy vending machine was paid for by the Dairy Council or the Milk Marketing Board. And then to try resources or foods that we wanted to put in there, we received a Fuel Up to Play 60 grant. And we got the machine in December and we filled it in January of this year. And between January and May, we have raised $2,500. So that's a pretty easy fundraiser for my kids, and this will pay for our student organization to go to competitions that they want to attend and some field trips that they would like to do. So now I have an ongoing source of income. And that came from my milk marketing. Plants, that is an indoor greenhouse on the right. I received that as part of my NEA grant, and I hooked up with my Farm Bureau and the Agway, and they donated seeds to our program. And I expected a few packages of seeds in September, and I received 7 cases of seeds. So we now plant plants and sell plants. So during the fall, my students manage that indoor greenhouse selling herbs and flowers, and then when it comes to spring, we plant and sell for people's home gardens. And the first year we tried this, we sold over 200 plants. So it's an ongoing source of funding for my department. And the kids really enjoy it because then they have things to take home and it can be part of my classroom. This is my shared resources called Grant Possibilities. So if you look on the list, there is a link to that, and you can find all my grants as sources there, and I have several pages of links for you to go and look for other grants. And this is my contact information. That's my school website, and so a lot of my activities are there, and I write a tech article for FastFacts, which is the newsletter that comes out monthly from the American Home Economics or Family and Consumer Science Association, so I list iPad apps there too. That's it.
Great, Sharon. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I'll give you just a couple of moments to catch your breath, and then we'll take some Q&A from our attendees. So if you do have a question for Sharon, please feel free to submit it now through that questions box of GoToWebinar. I'll go ahead and pull the screen back here. Just want to take a moment to pop back into the teacher learning community, share with you where you can find some additional resources. If you'd like to learn more underneath our courses tab, lots of great categories here. If you're wanting some additional information and wanting to learn more, we have over 500 on-demand webinar recordings, all divided into all these wonderful categories. So if you're looking for some additional resources and wanting to learn more, some fabulous resources inside of the teacher learning community. Okay, Sharon, let me go ahead and get your contact information up here. Did have a question that came in from Jennifer. She says, are there any grants for international schools? I work at an international school in Istanbul, and I'm just curious if this is an option for us.
I haven't tried international grants, and it depends on if it's an American school or if it is strictly for international students. Corporations have a lot of grants, and I would say that's the way to go, especially corporations from whatever your home country is.
Yeah, she said it is for international students.
Right. So I would guess like whatever corporations are in your country, look there first.
Great, Sharon. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. It's been a pleasure being here with you today. Did have one more question came in from Colette. She says, are grants available for schools on military bases?
NEA, I know, considers that part of their domain, so yes, and there are some that are specifically listed for that when you go into the Grant Wrangler and the Grant Alert.
Okay, great. Sharon, thanks again for a wonderful presentation. It's been a pleasure being here with you today, and I look forward to being here with you again for some future sessions.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Sharon.